No five-star shine, no silver spoon. I came up grinding on the Friday night moves. Now they feel me coming like a fourth down blitz. Got them talking sideways, throwing fits. But I must admit, I can't quit. 'Cause I'm the outlaw of college football. Ain't no stripes can hold me back. I don't need them.
Woo! It's a big week in college football. These are the weeks that we live for, not just for my Alabama Crimson Tide and those Georgia Hedge Pissers, but there's plenty of great games this week that just make, that college football enthusiast inside of you just percolate. And it's like the final countdown, I think, should be our song of the day. That by Europe this is the final countdown for Georgia and Alabama. Both of them have a lot riding on this game. And this is sort of going to be a prediction video, but sort of not. Just we're going to go over this game and just talk about how it might affect both teams, Alabama and the Georgia Bulldogs. But before we get to all that, I'd like to tell y'all that we are now taking donations through my Cash App. That's $JPC316 on Cash App, because I got demonetized for resharing Charlie Kirk videos from my friend in my shorts section. Now, getting right to it here. Oh, man, Georgia Hedge Pissers. Them and Tennessee have the same relationship that Alabama and Georgia have, just in the opposite direction. Tennessee can't seem to get over that Georgia Hedge Pisser hump, and Georgia can't seem to get Alabama out of their head, as Alabama has consistently beat Georgia 10 out of the last 11 times, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe 9 out of the last 11. I could be a little off on that, but regardless, it's a pretty substantial difference. And for two teams that always seem pretty equal on the field, you would think that the last 11 games will be a little more even, but they're not. Georgia has an Alabama problem. Everybody thought it was a Nick Saban problem. Everybody was clamoring and gleefully and spastically celebrating when Nick Saban left, because they was like, now Alabama will never beat us again, because they just assumed that Alabama is Nick Saban, when in fact Alabama sort of made Nick Saban. Nick Saban, he had a lot to do with it too, but it wasn't just Nick Saban. Alabama has won national championships under 5 different head coaches, and they will win one under a 6th different head coach. But y'all don't have a Nick Saban problem. Y'all got an Alabama problem, as evidenced by the fact that last year you lost to Alabama again, this time with Kalen DeBoer. And you can't beat them this year when you really got us right where you want us. Y'all got us between the hedges, and it's a night game. Hopefully y'all don't pull that blackout shit out of your pocket again, because last time that happened, Alabama power shut your ass down. We pretty much dominated Georgia last time they had one of these blackout games, and Alabama was included. So I would suggest not doing that. But, the hedge pissers are the hedge pissers. They don't listen. That's what muttball lickers do. They just do their thing. And if they get kicked like an old mud again, then they just get kicked like an old mud again. And a lot of people think that this is the year that Georgia finally gets over that Alabama hump. But I don't know about that. Everybody was, including me and a bunch of Alabama fans, maybe overreacted to the Florida State loss. If Florida State had came into that game 13-1, like they were 2 years ago, and not 2-10, I don't think people would have lost their noodle quite as badly. Everybody assumed that was going to be a cupcake game because Florida State was coming off 2-10, but what they didn't realize is they flipped their whole roster with this NIL transfer portal crap that is going to hopefully have some semblance of rules next year. At least that's what they're saying. So they flipped their whole team. Should have saw the red flags. Plus, we're breaking in a new quarterback in a very hostile environment, not a neutral site game like in years past when Alabama played these big games. The new quarterback had the luxury of at least playing at a neutral site and not in a hostile environment. Not only that, but you had a few injuries as well. Jam Miller was out. That's not an excuse. It's just a fact that our running game is a lot better with Jam Miller and could have took some much-needed pressure off of Ty Simpson in that game. A lot of players are just assimilating to each other, and that's the very first game of the year, and you put them in Doak Campbell Stadium, which has been known as to be one of the most intimidating stadiums of all time. You can't just go by that 2-10 last year. That's an anomaly in Florida State history. If you take Florida State and you look at their history, the last 30 to 35 years, you might as well consider them a blue blood. They're a former 3-time national champion. So the overreaction by me and everybody is starting to become a little more evident, and it's actually very soothing to think that maybe our season ain't shot to hell in just week one. We did beat up on Wisconsin pretty good, and I was really proud of how they played, and they looked like they were gelling a lot better. But the problem with Alabama and Kalen DeBoer is we don't seem to play very well on the road outside of playing in Baton Rouge, which we all know Alabama's got some kind of voodoo magic over Baton Rouge. Alabama has a very high winning percentage in Baton Rouge. But for the most part, when Alabama goes on the road, and normally it's against teams that are very much the underdog, Georgia won't be that case, they lose. Florida State, they were a big underdog to Alabama. We lost. The only game they weren't, the team wasn't a big underdog was that LSU game. So, Kalen DeBoer and Ty Simpson, who's only had one game to prove himself on the road, this is their moment to prove that they can win on the road, at least outside of Baton Rouge. Can they do it? I don't know. I mean, the passing game has been looking a lot better, looking a lot more fluid. Ty Simpson has not been the ball hadn't been hitting the ground very much with Ty Simpson unless the receivers drop it on their own. So that could spell trouble for Georgia. Georgia's offense has looked a lot better with Gunner Stockton this year. But they haven't played a really, really great defense yet. There's a way of it. You play Tennessee. Well, Tennessee gave up 26 to Syracuse. Tennessee's defense is decent, but it's not that great. So, and as you know, last year, Ryan Williams made a name for himself in this game. After that great acrobatic catch that he made to beat Georgia, he didn't really have a lot of good stats after that, but he seems like he reemerged again against Wisconsin doing the acrobatics and the Houdini stuff. And that's not a good sign for Georgia because their secondary, in my opinion, is very weak. And if Alabama is starting to gel with their receivers, and Jeremy Bernard is already solid, he's consistent. And if you bring Ryan Williams into the mix and he's finally getting out of his own head, Georgia could be in for a long day. If they can't outscore Alabama like they did Tennessee, they may have some issues. They may have another situation like the blackout game. Now, in Georgia's favor, this is the year. They've been pining for this. They've been wanting to get Alabama back in Athens. We haven't played in Athens in quite some time. What has it been, 7, 8, 9, 10 years or something since we've been to Athens? Kirby Smart mentioned that. But we have played y'all in Georgia quite a few times in Atlanta, just so you know, Kirby. But Georgia, I think, if they're going to beat Alabama, they got to hope that the addition of Jam Miller coming back, because Alabama's running game has not been very good. And if you look at that and you're like, man, we just shut down Ty Simpson, they ain't got a running game, we got this game won easily. But they are having Jam Miller back, so the running game may not be quite as bad, and it may be a little misleading since Jam Miller wasn't here. I think the key to this game for Georgia is to hope that Jam Miller is not going to be as good as he was last year, and that they can just shut the running game down and key on Ty Simpson. Ty Simpson, while he has been very efficient and has had a high completion rate, if he has zero running game again against a very quality team like Georgia, it could spell trouble for Alabama. And I also don't think it would be wise for Georgia to get in a shootout with Alabama. They may win a shootout, but I think if they were wise about it, they would try to control the ball a little bit more, keep Ty Simpson on the sidelines. I know it's a little Captain Obvious there, but I think a game in the high 20s would serve Georgia a lot better, and they might even win by a couple of scores if that were to happen, just like, Florida State did. Florida State, same thing. They take the Florida State game plan, they might be able to finally get Alabama out of their heads and win this thing, and a lot of people think they will. But in the end, I think that Jam Miller being back, it's going to take a little pressure off of Ty, and Ty's going to be able to pick apart that Georgia secondary. It would not surprise me if Alabama were to upset Georgia maybe in a game in the low 30s. Maybe Alabama 35 and Georgia 28, like one of those SEC title games? I don't know. You guys and gals tell me in the comment section. Y'all drop it in the comments down here. Give me your score prediction to the game, and we'll go back and look at these later and see who was the closest and that kind of deal. With that, I'm going to get out of here. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. As I said before, if you want to make a donation to the program, hit me up on Cash App, money $sign JPC316. I'm also on Venmo under JPC316 as well. KMCA to all the other teams. Class is now officially dismissed.